Hello and welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and I'm very glad you're joining us again today here on Progressive Radio Network. Remember, you can reach us always directly for the show or for a lot of information at www.abetterworld.net. Come and become part of A Better World family and community. We're doing a lot of very exciting things to move the world to its next level of cultural, practical, and spiritual activity. So please join us. Today we're going to be focusing on the role of the arts in transformation, in shifting and change. And for that, we're going to be starting with someone who's very appropriate for this kind of conversation. Two directors, actually. First is William Arntz, who we had on the TV show some years back in 2004, actually, when What the Bleep Do We Know was first released. I was involved with helping promote it in New York when it first came out, and William is one of its co-directors and really the leading force behind it in many ways. And before William got involved in filmmaking, he had been struck out on a spiritual path from having been a laser research physicist. Sounds very disparate, doesn't it? Well, no. It's actually a laser beam to the end of time. The way he has orchestrated from moving from one career, so to speak, into another is actually a very interesting, really interesting movement. And as a result of his rich background, he's bringing a lot to the table when we look at subjects of the material world and quantum physics, both in the same sentence. And this time he has very interestingly found, or actually was found by Raymond Brown, who has a background in Taoism, in shamanism, in Afro-American and African indigenous teachings. He's really been involved in a wide array of different spiritual and metaphysical teachings, and this film that he made and invited William Arntz to participate in with him as co-director, called Ghetto Physics, is his first major feature film, and it's very interesting. Boy, well, you'll get the website and you'll have a chance to see it yourself or get the DVD, because, well, I'll just say it helps to frame our understanding of what's going on this planet in a way that, in language that, well, we're all going to understand. That's for the first half of today's show. The second half will be with Franco Moschetti, who is a playwright and a writer, Italian-born, who's here in New York City, who just opened up a play on Off Broadway, which was compelling. I saw it last week, and we're going to go into some real depth about that play. And as I said, today's show completely is about art and theater and film in service to our higher purposes of awakening and transformation, because God knows we better do something quickly. So, William, are you on the line? And Raymond Brown?
Yes. I'm here.
You're both there. Wonderful. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. I just saw the film. It's very exciting. Raymond, I know your time. You're in a conference in Colorado. Your time is shorter than William's, and so I'm going to just open up with a question to you. How is it that you found William? How is it that you found the subject of the film, and what inspired you to do this?
I guess what inspired me to do it was my own experience in just seeing interaction and power dynamics at all levels of American society in politics and the economic arena. And I wrote a political satire right before war in Iraq in 2003 entitled "Will the Real Pimps and Hoes Please Stand Up? Peeping the Multi-Level Global Game." And and I was studying Jungian analysis at the time.
Yes.
And and had a background in pan-African studies and kind of geopolitical, looking at neo-colonial frameworks and stuff like that.
Yes.
So, it kind of started in my consciousness, and then I made a pilot draft of my film and ran into a man named John. Actually, and he worked with Will on the Bleep Do We Know.
Yes.
I had envisioned, my farthest reaching thoughts were, maybe I could connect with somebody like that in the film game, and they would really get the vision, and we ended up colliding.
Yes, yes. Well, it's very interesting because obviously what the Bleep Do We Know, which I know quite well, and I've interviewed a number of the featured physicists and scientists on it over the course of years, that stays within a certain, you could say, it's not a comfortable realm, but it's within a certain quantum physical frame and neuroscientific frame that a lot of my friends and colleagues are very familiar with. But this film, putting your two brains together and creative spirits, brought that kind of understanding onto the street in a very raw political, economic way that really helps to offer a frame that is just not your typical one, but boy, does it speak the language. Could you speak, Raymond, a little bit about what that is? I mean, when you say you could almost break down all archetypes into two fundamental ones. Jung would be turning in his grave. I don't think so. Of pimps and whores.
Okay, well, yeah, no, I don't say that we could break all the archetypes down into those. I say those two have archetypal. Those terms have archetypal significance.
Yes. Can you speak to that?
Yes, that I just noticed from studying mythology. You got the traditional archetypes that show up in everybody's mythology: king, queen, leader, warrior, trickster, lover, all that. And
sure.
And then in hip hop, I'm from inner city in L.A. and it was pimp ho showing up all over the place in the lingo, and then the corporate entities started coming in. So then you had Pimp My Ride and Pimp My iPod and Lee Iacocca selling Cadillacs with Snoop Dogg. And, so it was showing up all over the place. And that's what I put forth in archetypal analysis, saying this has to do with power, not just, prostitution on the street.
Yes, of course.
And, so I wove together that conversation, with the real pimps and hoes, please stand up, streets direct to the corporate boardroom, to the preacher with the Rolls Royce, and saying, these other archetypes are woven into as well. Pimp, you got the king, the queen, the leader, the warrior, the hero. You got a hero-villain paradox, a trickster, a lover. All these different archetypes are woven into that figure. And the whole you have, because you gotta keep moving. The game coming at you at all levels. And you've got to be fluid and roll with punches, and you got a magician because you got to turn tricks and pay the bills and make it all work and keep giving love no matter what, or you become pimped internally by all the negativity. So it was like a poetry that went along with it, just like we all play these roles, interacting, in our daily narrative.
Exactly. But some would say that while we all know we all play the role of prostitute in some way or another, because we are, in the larger sense, we are being forced in so many ways in this life to compromise values for what might be the greater good, or, as you're really pointing the finger to, making money in this film. You both are saying that that's certainly one of the main areas where people find themselves sacrificing themselves and their higher principles. So that's where I think your frame really does have a lot of weight. William, are you there?
I'm here.
Good. Welcome to the show. Good to hear your voice.
Yep, here we are again.
Indeed, here we are. What were you thinking when you first heard this notion that E-Ray was floating out to you about this kind of frame? How did it speak to you?
Well, when I first heard it, John Rotz, the marketing guy, told me about it, and he told me the title. And I was like, well, I'm interested immediately because I got the basic premise.
Yes.
The premise being that what we see in the world is basically just a scaled-up version of what you see on the street, and it's really the same basic dynamic. That's sort of the archetypal thing that E-Ray talks about. So, I got it right away, and so I was intrigued, and then when I got the pilot, it was one of those things I wasn't looking for a project to do, but I had sort of had a little talk with the universe, and I said, I'm not really interested in doing anything, but if something can come by and help some people, make me an offer I can't refuse.
Mm-hmm.
And boom, about a month later, E-Ray shows up. I watch it, and I'm like, son of a gun. Here's the offer I can't refuse. And it was just, there was a lot of the tone in that pilot was there. I thought it was funny. I thought it was insightful. I liked the irreverentness of it.
Yes.
And part of me, I'm kind of a rebel. So part of it, I think, was doing
kind of a rebel. Kind
What's
of a
that?
rebel. Kind of a rebel.
Yeah, kind of a rebel. So the idea of like sending this to the Bleep crowd, I thought would be funny because they would, a lot of folks. As you saw from watching it, it pushes buttons.
Oh yeah, it rattles cages.
Oh yeah, and so I thought, well, might as well piss them off too, because
Yes.
it's like we were talking earlier. It's like you're going to sit on the cushion and hope the world gets better. It's like, and for me, I've always been very much in a spiritual path, doing that and working on my own evolution. But I got to the point. It's like, man, for me, I can't just sit and ignore the rest of the world. E-Ray said something to me the other day. I love the quote. Remember that E-Ray said, "There's just too many of us on the planet now to look away."
Beautiful.
Isn't that cool? That's E-Ray the poet. And it's like, no, we can't look away because we're affected by all the stuff that's going on. So, here we are. That's Ghetto Physics.
Exactly. And by the way, E-Ray, I love the name. It's home, Ghetto Physics. And I really believe that it is a really well done expression of the micro related to the macro. And we really can see, as Will was just saying, those same relationships that we find in the ghetto, on the street, in the hood, being expressed in the White House, the relationship to Congress, its relationship especially to lobbyists and to their big corporate, sugar daddies. What really is the difference? The only difference is, if it is an Italian suit or it's a suit from just down the block, a leisure suit.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cuts to the chase as a lens, and a lot of times our analysis in dealing with these realms, it gets kind of formalistic and or really intricate and complex, and that loses I think the average person who's just trying to. So
exactly.
I think what this conversation does is it makes it plain right in your face, and you have to deal with it, and then you have to bring forth your critical consciousness to address it. And where are you with it? And you've got to examine yourself internally. Well, what are you going to choose in terms of your direction? And Will always emphasizes that, that it's about awareness and choice.
Yes, exactly. And you really weave that in beautifully. Just to set a frame for our audience, because most of you probably have not yet seen it, but I really do hope that you do. This is a real kind of raw, street level, on some levels, and beyond, portrayal of what's going on this planet, really. And it takes place in a schoolroom. And E-Ray, you're the professor, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And it is about his interacting with the students and giving them an education that's about the world, and it's about relationships, about archetypes, and then you both bring in, and of course, Will, you are interviewed throughout the entire piece, and it's also then spiced up with really notable people such as John Perkins and Byron Katie, and you've got Cornel West in there. You've got some real notable figures who are weighing in on their perspective, as you two framed it, of what's going on in the world and who can we be in it, and that we can move among the various archetypes. We're not locked into one, like the victim, and then you weave a certain narrative with this lovely woman, Shanice, who wants to be a lawyer, and she's playing the game in order to become a lawyer, when at the last minute, when she least expects it, the rug is pulled out from under her. That was a really beautiful piece, you two, about it really riveted me, I got to tell you, emotionally into the piece, and I thought that was very artful of you.
Good.
Credit Will with that one.
Yeah. Well, that was mirroring something he was doing in What the Bleep, of course, by following the narrative of the photographer through the Polish wedding and throughout, But that, otherwise it's more a little bit like Talking Heads, even from the ghetto.
Yeah,
exactly.
And the thing is, you gotta ground it for people in an emotional experience that really takes all that stuff that's in your head and it sort of grounds it, and then boom, it's like, okay, now I can relate.
Exactly.
Now, one other thing we do, I got to add, because it sounds very dire when we're talking about the the prostitution in the world and how we're all getting pimped by the advertisers and stuff. I just want to say that there's actually quite a bit of humor in it too, because
truly
this was got me going. And E-Ray first came to me. There's a lot of humor in it because it's really easy to films like this. You see it, you get all worked up. Like I just saw The Inside Job, very good movie. Mm-hmm. But at the end, you just want to go down to Wall Street with an Uzi. I mean, you're just pissed off. You don't know what to do. So. It's like, we wanted to have a certain sense of humor about it.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, I just had to throw that in. And
yeah. Oh no, I'm glad you did. That's a very important point, because our blood pressures can collectively rise on this planet if we don't have the the mechanism of humor to let off the steam. And
exactly.
You two really go another very profound, important step, which is the whole domain of choice and playing the different roles. Everybody becomes a victim at one time or another, and people become the leader and the hero in their own narrative. And you really give a lot of play to that, especially through Shanice, the lawyer-to-be, who then decides it looks like to, I don't want to say too much, actually. I want people to come themselves. Yeah, but I'll just say that you really do engage the viewer, the audience, to think through. We get to see really how we have been pimped, and we also see what we can then do about it, being magical, being whimsical, being funny, being playful, to rise above and transcend at the same time our life situations, whether it's in the hood or whether it's in the suburbs. In a sense, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would say
exactly.
Yeah, because there's domains that we can resources in some of these are not you can't lay out on a piece of paper with a compass, but the soul has these resources, these domains internally, if you want to call it that.
Yes.
That people will have to draw from to make it through where we are in this long-term decline of a lot of our structures because of the pimp game that's going on economically, and the country is being drained off and everything. And so, people are having to make it through, the average person. And you've got to find a focus point, spiritually as well.
Exactly.
To keep going, and you've got to draw from those resources. So the ghetto physics is also kind of akin to a soul physics.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And you really are, I think, E-Ray, gathering a point of leverage to inspire people into a new paradigm. In fact, you make reference in the film to Buckminster Fuller and the whole idea of a new paradigm, a new cultural shift. Could you, I know you only have a couple more minutes, could you just talk to that a bit?
Yeah, well,
because that's really what the whole future direction of it's all about.
Yeah, I'm here at a conference right now at the University of Denver called Pedagogy of Privilege. And, it's about hegemony and, social justice and white supremacy. But people are having conversations and expressing this type of thing. And so what you find out is if you haven't been discussing these types of issues, then you need some tools to go into the conversation and handle, because it gets kind of tense, and people are oblivious to a lot of things that they start finding out, about how it's landing in other people's realms. And so, when doing my presentations, my umbrella theme, now is basically the retooling of human consciousness. And so, okay, well, kids got pimped by, the Bush regime and whoever else came on, Wall Street and everybody internally, these entities, but then what paradigm do you operate from? It is looping you right back into the same conundrum, your own choices. And so, on the planet to choose paradigms and decide together and drop some of these antiquated.
Yeah, exactly.
Their work for us, so it will reach one.
Yeah, your phone is dropping off a little bit here and there, so there's a fair amount of drop out there, E-Ray.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
That's better, definitely, yeah.
Okay. We're retooling, basically.
Yes, exactly. No, that phrase of retooling human consciousness is a powerful one, and I really like it because it strips us all down bare, and then we have a chance to rebuild from wherever we happen to be. I've been a great follower and student practitioner of neurolinguistic programming, which has a lot to do with that kind of fundamental idea that we're creating our own reality. We are really the author of that reality. We create our perception. We can play with perception. We can have a lot of fun, and we can really basically kind of author the narrative that we really want in this life. And that's what I really hear you have to say. Why don't you... yeah, please. What's that?
I was just going to put this,
Yeah.
Things are shifting with the technology, and things are shifting with power, with the power game. So you're going to need a new game. You can't use the paradigm you operated from 50 years ago.
Exactly.
Well,
exactly. Exactly. E-Ray Brown, I really want to thank you for the good work you're doing, both with the book and the film. And just keep it up, and I look forward to having you on again.
Okay, thank you so much. I look forward to it, and thank you for participating. Thanks to William Arntz.
Absolutely, good. Yeah. Take care now. I think, Will, we might have to get him a new upgrade in technology of a new cell phone.
Well, phones or, cell phones, that's just what they do.
That is what they do, exactly. They go in and out of reality. In our last few minutes, Will, how do you feel having made this film after all of the global recognition that you got from What the Bleep? Are you behind this, sort of like to bring it to that same level of stellar position?
Well, I would like to, but it's a very different environment now than in What the Bleep days. In What the Bleep days, people were still going to theaters a fair amount. That's really changed in the 7 years since then, and so it's much harder to really get that sort of footprint out in the public. So it's much more electronic. So. And also, I think with What the Bleep, there was a certain missionary zeal that people had. They were so shocked that this material was in the theater that they just started dragging all their friends to it. So What the Bleep doesn't have that kind of missionary zeal to it. It has more of an underground kind of offbeat.
You mean Ghetto Physics?
Yeah, it's Ghetto Physics. So I think it's going to be different. I don't know how it's going to play internationally, because Bleep was pretty universal, but how much it's going to play internationally. But then again, hip-hop's the second biggest music genre in the world. So, that hip-hop mentality, which we have a hip-hop-ish soundtrack to it, and sort of the attitude is very hip-hop. We interview KRS-One, who's amazing.
Ice-T.
Yeah, he's in there.
Right.
Too Short. So it could happen, but you just don't know. It's one of those things nowadays that you get someone on the media saying something, you get people suddenly sending all their friends and Facebooking it and doing all that crazy stuff, and suddenly it's huge. So as I like to say, it's in the hands of Allah.
It's like, the viral marketing thing has really come through the social networks very powerfully. And, one of the things about this film, and I say this, of course, to the audience, is that it has a very basic appeal because it can really help wake people up who have never even heard of these ideas. And In a way, it's almost like if I may say, a kind of a 101 class for metaphysics and psychology.
Yeah.
And it opens it up. And it's no less powerful because of it, by the way. I think it's actually made more powerful because it's made so simple.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, what the Bleep was for, in some respects, was for the choir.
Yes.
But this is really for people who, if you tell them to, get in touch with their inner self and feel their power expanding through the multi-dimensions, they're going to look at you like, oh, come on, get real.
Yes.
So this is for the crowd that would say, come on, get real.
Yeah.
Don't give me that shit. And then you hit them with this, and then like, okay, well, they're not preaching to me. This isn't that whacked out. But, I'm going to listen to it because, they're telling me the way it is, and I don't like the way it is either.
Exactly. And I want to just commend you again on your insistence of having the narrative, because what happens to Shanice in the film becomes a very real point of contention where everybody can relate to what it's like to build towards something, having an idea. You don't know where the idea came from necessarily, but it's something that you've embraced as a dream. And then, well, I won't say more, but I will say that it's for the audience, this moment, it's a cliffhanger. And it really does help to really make the point and drive it home about what it's like to call the world of pimps and the world of hoes. It's very powerful.
Cool.
Absolutely. Well, William, thank you so much for being on the show again. And, I'd like to have you on again when time permits.
Well, you have my number. I'm always happy to chat with you. It's always fun. So
yeah. Definitely.
Give a holler anytime.
Great. What is the website for Ghetto Physics so people can learn more?
Ghetto Physics, just spelled out all one word, .com.
Excellent. William Arntz, thanks again for being on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. William Arntz, co-director of What the Bleep Do We Know, and his current co-director, Raymond Brown of Ghetto Physics. There's information about that on our website at www.abetterworld.net and in our newsletter, where you can access the information for the book and for the DVD. So that was a very interesting thing, and it might have seemed a bit abstract because you haven't seen it. However, ... go see it. You'll know why. And the same thing is going to actually apply now to some extent in my conversation with Franco Moschetti, who is this wonderful playwright who just recently staged When Yellow Were the Stars on Earth, a World War II drama in which these two heroic women, I'm quoting from our newsletter, a female Jewish resistance fighter and a German cabaret singer, transcend their positions as enemies by sacrificing their lives for one another. About that, I don't want to say too much more, but I would rather that you hear something from Franco himself, who is the generator of this play, which is it on Broadway still? Is it still in the theater?
It's now finished to be shown to the Manhattan Festival, and we are just shopping to have other venues and theaters. We are talking with producers, and we are in contact with some theaters. Certainly, there's a great potential to reach a very large audience. And after a stage that will go on for some time, we are already starting the pre-production of the movie, a Fisher movie. We are just making something that is really
that is excellent. Good. It's such a pleasure to have you here in the studio.
Thank you. The same here, Mitch.
Good.
Thank you.
What was it that inspired you to put this together? I mean, after all, World War II, Nazi Germany, the Jews, this has been explored for decades. What is it at this point in time, Franco, that really inspired you to go back into that?
Well, Mitchell, this is just the point. You just strike right in the middle of the point. So I've been reading for many, many years about the Holocaust and everything that happened before and after. And sometime, a few years ago, they told me, how come you study the Holocaust so in such an intense way. You're not even Jew. And I was shocked of such a safe thing. I mean, so
Yes.
this, the Holocaust is an event. It's a profound scar that the planet has.
A profound
And it's-
human event.
Exactly. It's still open. It's a wound that still has to heal, and it still bleeds some time. So this relates to everybody. If everybody is one, we all have that pain. And somehow I've been so fascinating to get into it, and I start to study and collecting. I collect almost all the documentaries that have been ever produced.
Really?
And I read several books, and I just in a certain moment will touch. I said, you know, many years have passed. There are 66 years past now. And somewhere, somehow, the old message keep being unilateral. It's always going that direction. We have a division. Now, here's the people that suffer in the Holocaust, mostly Jew, of course, 6 million, and another 6 million composed from many other gypsies and political, gay, you name one. And we have a kind of a line. Here, those people stand, and here are the Germans. The Germans that they have no way to redeem themselves. And I'm not here just to save or say, look, it never happened. Oh, that pain, how can you just have the courage to go there and say, you family have to forget about this? No, no. We have all remember to hope that it will not happen again, even though it has happened again since.
Exactly. It happens in different forms, as you know, Franco. And the fact is that no one group, ethnicity of any sort, can claim patency. I mean, with a strange idea anyway. But yes, as you said, there were some 6 million Jews, it said, and 6 million other. And, I mean, they say that it were 10 million Christians and 20 million Russians.
Exactly.
So
the number is staggering.
the
yes.
numbers are staggering, and the Jewish story is one of the many stories to be told about the horrors of that war.
And that's where I insert my wanted to write something. Strange enough, on a certain moment I heard in me that voice and says, okay, Franco, you have been writing already on your own. You never wanted to go out with something. I think the time has come. And something that came to me was, let me go back in the past and just trying to create an imaginary possibility in which, for once, a German that is under the umbrella of the Nazi and a Jewish fighter, which female Jewish fighter, which
Yes.
they were so rare, why don't I make them meet? And through this meeting, something transcendent come out, and suddenly those two cultures vanish, and they merge in some kind of going above, and they're the place where we all find each other. So the message of this play is not forget. You still have to remember, for sure, but let's open a window. Let's look at things in another way. And that's why it's the first time, to my knowledge, that somebody writes something in which somebody like the cabaret singer, very German, a lover of the captain of SS, end up saving the life of the Jewish fighter and even dying for her. See, I give away a lot of my plot, but it's so important, more like as a mission. When I finished to put this on stage, the result and the background for people, I mean, they came back to me, it was behind any wild expectation, because people were really waiting for me, hugging me, and mostly they were Jewish, I would say 89%, and says, I thank you that you just have the courage to bring here.
Oh, yeah.
Something like this, it's you go out and trying to spread the message, do it. And I finished this, and I said, wow, this is turning without my wanting to be. I didn't want to be an heralding messenger. It's turning from writing a play that would just bring the message to a real message. So they asked me to go and share this in a didactical way into schooling, university, high schools, so that the new generation, they have some sort of way that could be some form of peace. And thanks God.
Exactly. You know, it's funny. There were a couple of synchronicities, Franco, that surrounded my seeing your play. First of all, my dear friend and colleague David Katzmeyer, who you know from a community together, invited me, and I was gladly to go, and I brought my girlfriend, and she really didn't know much about World War II, actually, having grown up in Guyana. It was really interesting for me to see what her exposure was to World War II and the nuts and bolts of it and what it was not, because we are so accustomed to our own cultural heritage. We don't look at the world from others. So that was in itself an interesting aspect of it for me. But just a couple of weeks ago, before I went to see it, I was sent an email by a cantor of Rabbi Gelmerbins, who has been a guest on our show here. He just passed last Rosh Hashanah at age 98. He was a Hungarian Jew who lost some of his family, his daughter and his wife, in the Holocaust. She sent me, Judy, an email about a 98 or so year old woman, Catholic Polish, who risked her life for almost a decade in helping bring Jewish children to safety. Thousands of them, actually. She was a hero, a war hero. She's not Jewish. She's Catholic. You know how many stories there actually are of Catholics, Protestants, whomever, helping Jews and others to safety during the war. It's a beautiful theme. It's a true theme. It really expresses one of the nobler parts of human nature. And you really hit on it very, very personally with not a Polish Catholic woman, but with a German woman in relationship to an SS officer. Her life was completely at risk in that relationship, and with the relationship with the Jewish resistance with Miriam.
Purely heroic. And lately,
Yes.
in fact, a lot of those stories are surfacing, in fact. So what happened that I've been in German for many years, and I've been a lover of German culture forever.
In Germany,
so how could I miss the writing, the poetry, the music alone? The music alone. I mean, it's such a height, and the question
Das
of the
ist
question.
schön.
Absolutely. And
I
the question,
bellissimo.
bellissimo. And how could anybody just think, like always, the same question, how could those people do? And the reality is that you find the seeds in many other tragedy in humanity. And you have a tendency to put the finger at the end to the old generation, to the old people, and we do not understand nowadays with this democratic way to approach things, so quoted, democratic,
Yes.
how you are free to think, you're free to think. In those days, especially in that German, or in Italy, in the fascists, I mean, you have nothing else to hear and to see than that. And you had to go into school when the Führer was on the wall like Christ. And what chance do you have? You get in such a level, it's not even brainwash, it's soul brush. And those people have been dragged this bite, and then at the end everybody point their fingers on there for years. And you can literally talk with any German still nowadays, because the level of guilt that they prove, it is so intense.
Did you lose family? I mean, after all, of all other cultures, you are ethnicities, you're Italian, and of course, Mussolini and Hitler were brothers akin, unfortunately.
No, but I have an interesting story that David, our David Katzmir, helped me to refresh when I was talking to him.
Yes.
My grandfather, he was a bright man for his age, and he became very inflamed with the fascism himself, and he was a major of the army, of the fascists. And he was so inflamed. They went to the campaign in Africa. They were so happy, screaming to the top of when they get into the war.
So he was fully behind Mussolini.
So fully, completely. It was like a god for him. And then the war started to start and break through. And he was a kind man, and he started to see the horror of the war and what the fascists and the Nazis would do in Greece, and then after in Russia. When he came back in the campaign in Russia, he came back a changed man. He just couldn't understand why this could happen, and it was too much for him. And he couldn't change his life. He had a family, 3 children then, so he was caught into this whole situation of the war. And he made a fantastic deed, and in fact, one night he was the major of jail, and they did a roundup, and they took 200 partisans.
In jail?
They brought him in jail, where he was in Italy. Sorry, in the surrounding of Rome. And he was there, the major, like they had. And those people, they were to be shot the day after. and everything was ready. And somehow he was so sorry about that. He just couldn't do anything. But he did something special. It was the night before Christmas. So what he said, he managed to be there the night of Christmas itself, when everybody wanted to go home. And he stayed with a few soldiers that they were very close to him. And he went down unexpectedly, and he brought some blankets to these people. And he helped in a reservation that they had with food for the army, and he brought some prosciutto, some wine. And he said, look, by morning I'll come, you give me back the blanket, and eat everything you can. And so they had a wonderful Christmas. Well, the story was beautiful in itself. The day after, they all come. Most of them had been rounded up and shot. But an attack came from the partisan, and a lot of them being liberated. So
Really?
they escaped in the forest.
A shot came from where?
From outside of the jail, they come a group of partisans, and they attack the contingent that he was leading, and they liberate a lot of those that have supposed to be shot. They all escape into the forest. 6 months later, now the fascism fell, and the fascists were, the partisans.
Do you know what year this was all happening?
43, the same
43.
of the, which had happened by coincidence without knowing, unconsciously, the same here.
Yes.
And then finally, my grandfather was this time into a little contingent, and he was captured by the resistance fighters, the partisans. So they put him in jail, and the day after, the same story reversed. Everybody on the wall shot. When his time arrived, he was against the wall. In the middle of the people that were behind the squad, they were just looking at those people die. He just looked at my grandfather, and he said, "Stop, you, come out of the line." And my grandfather couldn't understand. He brought him on the back and said, "Do you remember me?"
I'm getting chills.
And he said, "Not really, who are you?" "I was one of those you gave this beautiful act. Now, I was disguised, I'm one of the leaders. Now, take this." He gave his own clothing, and he gave a passport, and he said, "Run in the north of Italy. Bring your family, you have 24 hours. Now, you see, that's a story that came in my family for a long time. So I was in somebody that was the bad one. If you remember the movie Crash, how beautiful it is to see the dichotomy about these people that seems to be good and they become bad. There is some kind of this mentality that you find. I wanted to connect to the German.
Yes.
Because we cannot just put the finger there and say you're all bad. And God, if I just prize the Jewish, I'm not going to say, "Hey, Jewish, I'm doing something against you." Forget about all my friends are Jewish. All of them, every single of them.
Sure.
So.
Sure. No, I get the point. That is chilling. So your grandfather managed to escape then? Altogether?
Yes, absolutely, until the end of the family, and that was it.
And he lived. He survived.
He survived with all our family. So I'm here talking for the,
Que bella.
See what I mean? It's just a beautiful story that inspires unconsciously the story. So now where we are on a quest to trying to share the story of our play, which is so much touching and is new, especially from the young generations. And we're going to try to find any venue, any theaters. We have just finished to build up a website, which is yellowstar.org, org and not com.org. And there is everything about the play and what you can do, how you can help, either if you're a producer, if you own a theater, or you somebody that know any of those.
Sure.
Just come forward. Help us. Not just like going out as an ego going, just let's act and be beautiful and artist. Not only that.
As I opened up the whole show, Franco, I was talking about art and theater and film in service to higher consciousness and transformation, awareness, education. And that's really what today's show is so much about, and the work that you have done here. It's clearly that. I'll tell you, I told you right after the theater piece, or actually by phone, and I told Michelle Farbman, who played Miriam, who was also Inga in the play, right afterwards, because I was so struck, because I happened to have had a very Jewish weekend last weekend, wherein I was invited to, a good friend of mine is Orthodox, and he invited me to a Shabbos dinner upstate, and I have said thank you anyway for a year or two, and I just said finally yes. And I went, and it's a big schlep because you're not allowed to drive cars, and it's sundown to sundown, and there was a rabbi staying there. It was a whole thing. And it ended up that I had to take a certain bus from the northwest corner of 42nd Street and 8th Avenue. I've written this up in my newsletter. And it happened to be the same theater right in front of it where your play was taking place, and I would be there. This was Friday at sundown. I would be there Sunday at 3. Now, I had no idea, and I've not ever seen that theater before. But that was the small part. The larger part was the rabbi's wife, the Rebetzin's grandfather. There was a story told during the Shabbos that her grandfather had been lined up with hundreds, if not 1,000 other Jews in this case, on the Russian front lines, and shot point blank and fell into the ditch they themselves had to dig before the shooting. Now, I listened to that story, and I could not metabolize it. We've all heard various stories of this sort at one time or another in different contexts. Sometimes in movies, sometimes through family, what have you. And I heard it, I felt it for a moment, but I kind of went, I can't even deal with this. And the rabbi went on to tell one other story after another, and it became one of many stories. However, when I got to the theater and your piece that took place in the humblest of rooms, and the cabaret singer's brother came from the front lines of all places, Russia, and he tells this amazing story of how difficult it was for his friend, I believe, to actually raise his gun and follow the orders of his commander to shoot, again at point-blank range, all of these Jewish children, and he could not do it. And it cost him his life. And the way you directed this, Franco, where he was telling the story in such a deep, heartfelt, panicked way.
And he's real German, like Clara.
And he's a real German.
They really felt it. They were crying during the rehearsal. That was really something, especially
you could really
Clara.
see.
Yes.
I got the story that I heard the day before from the rabbi. That, your piece, helped to really bring that home and resonate in me. So
Yes.
I was just a basket case.
Also, the new version that we do for the show, I rewrote. I add one scene because I felt that the Jewish voice was not very well heard. So I just said, I have to write more because the intensity and the religiosity of the Jews in those days is not portrayed enough. So in the future, I will add that scene because this is not about German, this is not about Jewish, this is about something above
human.
Exactly, it's
Human.
above all of this.
Beautiful. Listen, this has been a true deep pleasure to have you on talking about your work and about this play, and I tell you, for people to see this and really bring it in, it helps the whole idea of always remembering what humans can do to one another and what we really need to avoid. So, grazie per tutto.
Thank you very much, Mitchell, to have me here.
Absolutely.
Thank
Just say your website one more time for
Yes,
people.
it's yellowstars.org.
And as I told you, I'll help you clean up some of the language if you're interested.
Any
I'll
help.
be glad to.
Welcome.
My pleasure. Prego. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World on Progressive Radio Network. I hope you enjoyed that and hearing these gentleman as much as I did. Visit us at our website at www.abetterworld.net for more information on both the film and the theater piece. And become part of our community, a Better World community. We're here to enliven, awaken, educate, and inspire so we can create that better world that in our hearts and souls we all know is here and is possible. A lot of people are mucking it up in many ways, but we're going to just look at that, laugh, squeeze their hand with a compassionate smile, and move right along. So thanks so much for joining us. Join us tomorrow night also on A Better World TV at 10:30. Again, the information is on the website. I'll be interviewing Natasha Kolsar, the executive director of the Ideal Community in Jaffrey, British Columbia, a very interesting community based on the teachings of Omram Mikhail Ivanov, a Bulgarian mystic based on astrology and the Kabbalah. So I look forward to having you join us there too. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.